The following video and continued growth of this channel are made possible by your support over on patreon.com/616entertainment. Sign up today at any level you choose and help bring these brand new projects to life. Or if you're looking for a brand new t-shirt, maybe stop by prowrestlingtees.com/616entertainment. I got you covered. After a trilogy of games with THQ and Yuke, the UFC made a deal with the devil. I mean, that's how UFC President Dana White would have made it seem. After years and years of publicly burying EA Sports to anyone who would listen, he'd put pen to paper with the sports game giant in mid-2012, guaranteeing that future UFC video games would not fall out of those championship rankings. Today, we're going to look at the Ultimate Fighting Championship titles released under EA Sports. The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Welcome to the final installment. This is the history of UFC video games Part 5, Changing the Game. Oh, what's up, Dan-Dans? My name is Ian, and man, oh man, can you believe we're closing out another History of already? Now, if you missed it, I already announced the 2024 series, which is going to be the history of Friday the 13th. So if you like my written, scripted, in-depth retrospectives, don't worry, there's plenty more to come on that front. And when this video is over, if you liked it, maybe if you like my other stuff and you want to support me, you can over on patreon.com/616entertainment. I could really use you in my corner, so if you want to, go for it. If you don't, hey, that's your business. My business is wrapping up this series, so let's get to it. Much like 2010's EA Sports MMA, which I covered in part 4 of this series, in case you missed it, it's worth taking a closer look at the actual development of the first UFC game under EA Sports. You know the drill by now. EA Sports isn't just one company. Here with the inaugural Ultimate Fighting Championship game, EA Vancouver, aka EA Black Box, co-developed this title in tandem with Skylabs. EA Vancouver are known for the FIFA series, NHL, the entirety of the Skate franchise, and, wouldn't you know it, Fight Night. More on this series later. You might know Skylabs for their work on ports of games like Minecraft, or their hand in developing Halo Infinite. Not quite the crazy resume of EA Vancouver/Black Box, but hey, it was a tag team effort, nonetheless. My hype level, as you might imagine, was higher than Nick Diaz in the cage with Anderson Silva. I'm a massive MMA fan. I loved UFC Undisputed 3, and now a brand new start under the umbrella that delivers the top tier sports game selections. Yeah, I was in. Look, I know it's really easy to say EA is trash. It's really easy to call them bullshit, lame, crooks, whatever you want to call them. It's easy. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes the accusation that they copy and paste practically the same game year after year fits. Sometimes. But here's the thing. I don't buy the games every year. I mean, honestly, I don't buy the games at all outside of UFC. The last Madden I bought was Madden 2004, and I paid $4.99 for it right when Madden 2005 dropped. The Fight Night series never disappointed me. So I'm not about to pretend that EA are garbage across the board. That sort of stance is ignorant, whether you like it or not. It's perfectly okay to not pick up every new entry. Keep that in mind for later. Specifically with the UFC, this was the first entry. There was no possibility of a copy and paste job, as there was nothing to copy and paste. We were getting something fresh, no matter what. But could it possibly stand up to Undisputed 3? Could it match EA Sports MMA? This new game, delivered with the extremely creative title EA Sports UFC, was revealed at E3 in 2012. The tomato himself was all smiles, telling fans that finally the UFC video games could make their way to everyone around the world. As if the Undisputed series didn't sell millions of copies in its own right. Whatever. The stage was set. EA Sports and the UFC had finally come together. Now, would this be a WWF sort of situation where we said goodbye to the war zones and attitudes of the world in order to welcome in the SmackDowns and No Mercies, which is arguably the greatest upgrade in video game history? Or would this be more of a WCW type scenario where we said goodbye to Revenge in order to say hello to Backstage Assault? There's only one way to find out, and that's to take a close look at the gameplay. The first thing you're going to notice is that EA Sports UFC looks good. Damn good. We've graduated to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One at this point, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty blown away by how well this has held up. Sure, it's only been 9 years, but I've played many late life cycle PS4 games that didn't have character models nearly this nice. The presentation is great, specifically in the career mode, which, for the first time, includes the Ultimate Fighter. Why did it take 9 years for a UFC game to feature the reality show that changed the company's fortunes forever? Who knows? Honestly, I have no idea. You'd think this would have been a no-brainer from day one, but hey, it's finally here. It does come at a cost, though, and by that I mean Pride Mode is gone. And spoiler, it never came back. To this very day. One of the main talking points developers pushed heading up to release surrounded the body deformation system. For example, punch your opponent in the midsection and watch the impact ripple through their torso. Pretty damn cool. Remember when Showtime Anthony Pettis ran up the wall at the final WEC show and hit Ben Henderson with the greatest kick in combat sports history? Well, you can nail the Showtime kick here in the game. The knockout animations range from brutal to dramatic to recycled from the Fight Night games?
Get away! Get away from a fan!
Oh!
Am I dead?
Yeah.
Is he dead?
I myrtleized you.
Fuck!
Yeah, they are. Put them side by side. These walk back and faceplant animations look terrible, and they don't belong in a simulation-style sports game at all. And now that we've crossed over into the negative territory, I do have a few things to get off my chest. You might be thinking, man, this looks like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and yeah, it is. I remember my first fight. I found myself wondering what the hell was happening. After the heavy, impactful strikes of Undisputed 3, this game's striking feels... I'm not trying to sell the game to you, I'm being honest, it feels like shit. Jabs, crosses, leg kicks, body kicks, they all feel absolutely worthless. Power punches like hooks don't feel much better.
Flying knee attempt there, and a nice 1-2 with the right and the left.
And all strikes come with a feeling of wearing concrete boots. When you're not bolted to the floor, though, you can expect many of your fights to look like this.
Opponent does not watch his arms. He will throw up multiple submission attempts. Strong kicks by Pettis.
Why the hell do I have to hold backwards on the stick to throw a head kick? Why does any forward advancing strike require the stick to be pulled in the opposite direction? You can block with the R2 button, but you can heavy block with R2 and square, or X. Is that overkill? Yes, it is. It's completely worthless. There's a parrying mechanic that comically bends a strike around your head like this is the Matrix, and when competing against the AI on higher difficulties, it can sometimes feel impossible to land a strike, as they parry every shot that comes their way. Very annoying. I feel like it's worth mentioning that the EA Sports deal wasn't the only major come-up for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. On television, the days of Spike TV were far in the rearview mirror. In August of 2011, the UFC signed a deal with Fox to broadcast fights on the main Fox network station, Fox Sports 1, and FX. Is it funny that the UFC's first event on Fox was a gigantic heavyweight championship fight between Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos? a one-fight TV card that lasted literally 64 seconds? Yeah, that's a little funny. I don't know what the hell they thought was going to happen. Basing an entire television broadcast around a singular fight is a mistake they never made again, but hey, you live and learn. The point I'm trying to make is that the UFC, once again, had reached a new level of fame, a new level of popularity, and a new level of competition. This time, with female fighters. I know you don't want a full history lesson on anything tied to the real world. You're here for video game coverage, so that's what I'll focus on. For the first time ever, not including guest character Erica Montoya from the PlayStation 2 days, we've got an entire division's worth of female fighters. Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, and more are here mixing it up with the boys, which is awesome to see.
Watch for that head kick again. Big front kick to the face. Powerful hook. Oh, look. Oh! It's over. That's it. She's out. Oh, wow. What a knockout. Miesha Tate wins by knockout.
And on the topic of fantastic first-time inclusions, you can't expect me to gloss over Bruce Lee, right? Enter the Dragon? How about enter the Octagon?
The strong kick.
God damn, this is sick. Bruce Lee is one of the fighters who often suffers from a strange bug, though, where right at the beginning of a round, he switches stances several times with no input from the player at all. I have no idea why this occurs. And speaking of weird annoyances, what the hell happened to Anderson Silva's gear? The Spider is known for his black and yellow shorts. He wore them in literally every UFC fight across his entire career. Aside from when the Reebok deal was new and no one was allowed to wear anything fun. So where are they? Was it a copyright issue? I doubt it. Such a strange oversight. I covered that Pride mode, unfortunately, is gone. And if you're wondering what replaced it, don't, because it wasn't replaced by anything. Maybe you're asking what there is to do besides career mode, ranked online play, or quick fights from the main menu, and I can answer that question with one word. Nothing. The first entry in any franchise is always the foundation, you know? The building blocks that would be iterated on with each subsequent sequel. EA Sports UFC definitely falls into that category. But make no mistake, I didn't bounce off this game in 10 hours. I didn't run through a career mode and go, okay, that was enough. Somehow, this is still in my top 3 most played games across my entire PSN account. So I don't know how. It's all a blur at this point, but that's accurate. You know, this might not be the best, but sometimes you'll take what you can get if you're a big enough fan. EA Sports UFC released on June 17th, 2014. And the review scores didn't exactly set the world on fire. I think it's fair to say that most critics were left unimpressed with the weightless, consequence-free, rock'em sock'em action. When it comes to the dollars and cents, you might be surprised to learn that this EA Sports entry actually didn't sell as well as THQ's Undisputed 3, which only compounds the disappointment. Coming off UFC Undisputed 3 made it hard enough to live up to the hype. But if you're really in the know, there's another reason to be annoyed by an underwhelming new game. EA Sports UFC took the place of the Fight Night boxing franchise, as EA themselves found the business of mixed martial arts to be more financially interesting than boxing. I promise I won't bring it up again across this video, but here's one last remark. Fight Night Champion, released in 2011. Here we are, nearly 13 years later, and the EA Sports UFC franchise is still being made in place of Fight Night. To say I'm annoyed with this would be an understatement. But that's that on that. You won't hear me talk about Fight Night for the rest of this video, which is great, considering we have several more UFC games to cover here today. When it comes to sports games, there's a pretty common template, right? The annual release. With the Ultimate Fighting Championship license, though, EA Sports broke the traditional mold. The sequel to their 2014 introductory installment wouldn't launch the following year, and instead would hit store shelves in March of 2016. This is a good thing for consumers, and you know what I mean by that, don't you? You and I. We're the consumers, and with a biannual release, we are being pressured to hand over $60 to $70 half as often as fans of other sports, which, hey man, I'll take it. But the year-long break between releases actually comes with a fair amount of pressure as well. You know, Madden's copy and paste accusations are slightly understandable when you really dial it in and take a look at how small of a window the developers have to create the product. Launching every other year tells the consumer, hey, we've had more time to work. We've actually had time to zoom in on all of the mechanics and all of the turning gears. We've identified what works, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be cut out entirely. And when the time comes to ship, you better bring the heat. Otherwise, what the hell was I waiting for? So what's new? What has EA Sports added to UFC 2 in order to justify the extended development cycle? First off, there's Ultimate Team Mode. You know how other EA Sports titles like Madden and FIFA have these card collecting gameplay modes where you build up your ultimate best team or whatever? They tried to do the same thing here. I gotta be honest, nothing in the world sounds less interesting to me personally, so I have never even once engaged with this mode, and now the servers are shut down, so I can't even get any capture of it to tell you about it. Does anybody really care? I doubt it, seeing as though future EA Sports UFC sequels drop this mode, with the developers citing a lack of interest from the player base as their cause. Moving on, we've got Knockout Mode. These UFC games are really complicated. Many players engage with these titles for hundreds of hours and never learn how to grapple. Knockout Mode is for those players. It's a stand-up specific, health bar based, arcadey good time. You know I'm a sucker for an event mode, or if you're a wrestling game fan, maybe you'd call it create a pay-per-view. It's nice to have this here, but it's practically empty. It's just a list of fights. None of the bells and whistles that Undisputed had for this mode are here at all, which I don't think there's any excuse for. So we've got new game modes, one of which I think is a major positive. What else? Well, this is most importantly, the gameplay has indeed been reworked. Jabs and crosses now carry impact and are perfect for stopping an incoming opponent or setting up a power shot. Leg kicks are delivered with more weight as well, and the same can be said for strikes to the body. There are far fewer of these moments, because many of these wacky moves have been removed, or at the very least, toned down. I didn't go into UFC 1's grappling system because it was largely pulled over straight from Undisputed, but UFC 2 has ditched the quarter circle transition system for a brand new mechanic, where all you need to do is hold the right stick in one direction and fill a wheel, which is much more intuitive. And not for nothing, we have to talk about the knockouts. I guess I shouldn't even call them animations, because these are not canned by the numbers repeated movements anymore. Now, the momentum of the strike delivered determines how your body hits the canvas. This can make for some of the most natural and devastating KOs you've ever seen in your life.
Using this jab very well. She's got a cut on the bridge of her nose. Oh, and another jab. Oh, my goodness. Look at the good jab. Wow, what a back and forth exchange. Oh, wow. Wow, another big jab score. Oh. Oh. And he's down again. Here. Wow. Forces opponent. Oh, he caught him with a big punch. Wow. Damaging left hand. Oh. That's it. He's out. He's out. Wow.
It can also create some hilarious, over-the-top ones as well, if the physics are feeling a little froggy. There are hundreds of compilations on YouTube of crazy UFC 2 KOs. I highly recommend checking a few of them out. One of my favorite things to do in these games is to pick a fighter and play out a what-if sort of scenario with their career trajectory. Chuck Liddell is one of my all-timers, and it's widely known at the tail end of his career he couldn't take a shot like he used to. At UFC 88, the Iceman was knocked out cold for the first time in his career by the surging Rashad Evans, who would win the light heavyweight championship in his very next fight. Chuck Liddell would suffer 2 more straight knockout losses before retiring at the age of 41. I like to shake things up. I'll pick Chuck Liddell and I'll play against a Rashad Evans on the highest difficulty to see if I can change his fate. If I win, what would have made sense next? Maybe a title shot? Or maybe Iron Mike fucking Tyson. Yeah, see, that's the other fun thing to do here, if you have a little imagination. Mess around with the guest characters. Joining Bruce Lee this time out, we've indeed got Mike Tyson. 2 different eras of Tyson, actually, as well as Pride Fighting Championships legend Kazushi Sakuraba and fellow UFC Hall of Famer El Guapo, Boss Rutan.
Everybody underestimates the kick in the groin. Dang. And look what we got here. Smack his face.
Pairing the legends of a bygone era with today's athletes can make for a damn good time, let me tell you. And with a roster of over 250 fighters in this game, there's no shortage of potential matchups. Career mode was slightly improved with a list of opponents now presented to us, and we get to choose which fight we want to take. Training segments were streamlined and pared down, but outside of that, there's not much to speak of. The same way event mode lacks any and all flavor, career mode is pretty much the same. There are no weigh-ins, no interviews. Joe Rogan's not going to hop in the cage after a title fight and ask you how you're feeling. It's just menus and fights. I do have a few issues I'd like to spend some time on, if you don't mind. I've found across my 112 hours playing this game, accurate number, that my fights never end out of the blue. One of the greatest, most exciting aspects of combat sports is that anything can happen at any time. In UFC 2, that's not the case. I cannot recall a single instance where, in the opening moments, I threw a perfect punch that slapped my opponent with one shot. It just doesn't happen. It's like there's a Mortal Kombat health bar that we can't see. Now you gotta build combos and hit special moves. You can't one-shot anybody in Mortal Kombat, right? But this isn't Mortal Kombat. I should be able to stiffen somebody with a perfect sniper shot, damn it. The ground and pound finishes look like shit. It's so hitchy and abnormal looking. There's zero flow. This is not how human beings move. The 2-year development cycle paid dividends in the end, as EA Sports UFC 2 did indeed outsell the original. Not only that, but the review scores came in higher than last time as well. I mean, most of them did. IGN's John Robertson scored UFC 2 lower than the previous title. Granted, John Robertson didn't write the review for the original, but still, putting 2 below 1 is criminally insane, as 1 isn't a better product in literally any way whatsoever. But hey, we all know that. And we all know that review scores are just one person's opinion. We shouldn't get hung up on it, even when it seems like maybe the person has no idea what they're talking about. UFC 2 was a step in the right direction, which begged the question, could UFC 3 continue to raise the bar? Or would this rising contender get knocked out before its title shot? Here's the thing. I'm not going to cook this into some big reveal. I'm not going to dangle that carrot and try to get you to guess whether or not I like UFC 3. I'll reveal it right here at the very top. For my money, up to this point, EA Sports UFC 3 took the title. Yes, indeed. In my personal opinion, this was the new greatest mixed martial arts video game ever made. Now, that's a bold claim. I understand that. What makes this better than UFC 2? What makes it better than EA Sports MMA? How could this be better than Undisputed 3? All great questions, and I'm more than happy to respond. First and foremost, Snoop Dogg now commentates knockout mode.
So you gotta watch your stamina, dog. You're gonna get knocked out. Oh, wow. No! Damn, he slept him quick. I need to call him NyQuil. He wasn't paying attention. He just was swinging wildly and he got caught, and then his bars went down. Oh, he might have broke his... Something broke. Woo! I like that kick. Look at your health bars. Look back up, man. Oh, man, stop the press. Stop the press. Stop the press.
Is that awesome? Yes. Yes, it is. But that's not the only reason UFC 3 became the new pound-for-pound king. You might have picked up from the gameplay clips you just saw that the striking controls haven't been given a slight facelift. No. The entire head was chopped off and replaced with a better one. Is that a strange way to word this? Maybe. Look, what I'm saying is this. For the first time ever, we can walk and strike at the same time. How did it take so long for this to become a reality? I have no idea, but man, oh man, is this a gigantic leap that mixed martial arts games needed. Remember how I said UFC 1 felt like we were wearing concrete boots, and UFC 2 was slightly better? Going from those into UFC 3 is like going from a speak and spell to an iPad. And if that's too dated of a reference for you, it's like going from a Game Boy to an OLED Switch. How do you like that? Was that better? This wasn't just a new idea implemented into the game's mechanics. No. What we're looking at is the first use of RPM tech, a brand new game engine designed to better represent human locomotion. God damn, I'll take it. Head movement has been greatly improved as well, now simplified and tied to the right analog stick. Swaying out of the way and answering back with a counter-strike has never felt better. If you frequent this channel, you've heard me say probably hundreds of times at this point that I don't really play games online. I don't usually engage with multiplayer at all. Spider-Man, The Last of Us, Octopath Traveler, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, these are my types of games. But UFC 3, with its buttery smooth striking and its intuitive grappling, it was calling to me for some reason. I kind of got the itch to see what it would be like to face other real players. So I checked out an online ranked fight, and I won by devastating knockout. And let me tell you, I found out very quickly how good it feels to beat somebody else. I've played shooters online like Killzone or Resistance back in like 2008. I don't really find it that interesting. It's fun for a few minutes, but it's not engaging for me at all. But stepping into the cage with a game plan and trying to figure out how the other guy across from me works, oh man, it's got the pull. This was actually the first time that I've ever felt even the slightest itch of a video game addiction. Now, listen, let me make this clear. I've watched many documentaries on people who got addicted to World of Warcraft, people who ruined their lives. They lost their house, they lost their job, their families left them. What I experienced is nothing even close to that, don't worry. UFC 3 just gave me the feeling of not wanting to put the game down, and I'll tell you why. Winning a fight felt great, and if I won, I felt like I was on a roll. Eventually I'd get knocked out horribly, and it's like, well, I don't want to end on a loss, right? So I'd play again. And if I lost again, well, I still need that win. But if I win, I mean, now I'm on another roll. It's a problem, Dan. I had to set rules for myself. If I didn't have everything I needed done for the day, I wasn't allowed to play online. Because if I turned that game on, I wasn't just going to have a fight or two. The poll was real, Dan. The poll was real. Beware. Career mode was marketed this time out as being largely overhauled. Become the greatest of all time. That's the goal. This can be accomplished by sharing training updates on social media, by hyping your upcoming fights through interviews and whatnot, but the matchmaking still sucks. The matchmaking has largely sucked across this entire series, and here in the third entry, it's no longer excusable. Fighting the same guys 5 and 6 times is unacceptable, and it occurs in practically every career playthrough you experience. I honestly think UFC 3's matchmaking is the worst yet. I've won the title, lost it, gone on a winning streak, and for whatever reason, I never get another title shot. Eventually I lose, like anyone would, which kills all my momentum, and what happens next? I get a title shot. What? Why? Coming off a loss? So now I'm sitting here trying to come up with a storyline in my head to make sense of this trash. I hate this. It's also annoying that Much like Undisputed 3, we start our career in the WFA and we have to earn a UFC contract. Cool, that's fine. My question is this. Why is the WFA arena only accessible in career mode? Why can't I use this cage in fight now mode or knockout mode? Come on, man. You give us practically zero visual variety across the entire game, and this is hidden away only in career mode. Bullshit. Competing in the ranks of special guest characters this time out, let's take a look at UFC President Dana White. It's still so funny to see Dana in an EA Sports game. After all the shit he talked over the years, man, money heals all wounds, doesn't it? But Dana's not alone. If you really want to get nuts, take Joe Rogan into the octagon. Hell, have him fight Dana White.
Kick to the body. He's hurt. Oh, he hurt him bad. Oh, that's it. Wow.
In what I think is really a head-scratching decision, Andre Bishop and Isaac Frost were included as playable characters here in UFC 3. If you don't recognize these guys, it's because they're not like Bruce Lee and Mike Tyson. These guys aren't real people. Andre Bishop and Isaac Frost are the one-off arch enemies from Fight Night Champion, a game released 7 years prior. Where the hell did this come from? I mean, it's cool, I'll take it. Isaac Frost is enormous, but what the hell? CM Punk isn't a guest character, as he was an active UFC fighter and competed in the cage twice, at UFC 203 and UFC 225. But it still feels like a fever dream to see him here sometimes, right? As a big Punk fan myself, I like that I can take it upon myself to see him get his hand raised in the octagon. Ultimate Team Mode returned this time out and was lambasted by critics for becoming a microtransaction nightmare, and I mean, what do you expect? This is EA Sports we're talking about. Remember at the top when I said sometimes EA are guilty of the accusations thrown their way? Here you go. But game developers pack their games with microtransactions because people pay for them by the tens of millions. If everyone would stop spending their money on this bullshit, we'd stop getting games structured around this system. How much money did I spend on Ultimate Team Mode? $0, because I still haven't ever engaged with this at all. I still have no idea how any of this works, so I'm sorry I still can't tell you about it, I guess. I can't tell you anything about it. And I'm actually not sorry, I take that back. Not only do I like to play out what-if career reruns with some of my favorite fighters, but I take it a step further. If I'm playing as Anderson Silva, I try my best to fight like Anderson Silva. Now, can I mimic him perfectly? Absolutely not, because my brain doesn't work the way the spider's does. Even in the digital realm, when I don't have to worry about getting punched in the face, I just don't have the instincts. But I try my best. I will taunt, I'll throw wacky strikes. If I knock you down, I'm not going to go for the finish. I'm going to say get up and I'm going to do it again. Oh man, it's kind of like role-playing in a way, isn't it? If you approach even a sports game with just a little bit of imagination, there's some extra fun to be had there. February 2nd, 2018. That was the day EA Sports UFC 3 hit store shelves, and once again, the reviews were looking good. Critics and players alike were over the moon about the reworked striking system, and again, Snoop Dogg does commentary in Knockouts mode. Are you kidding? Unfortunately, UFC 3 didn't sell as well as UFC 2. It actually didn't even crack the sales figures of UFC 1, but I don't think that's the fault of the game itself. I don't even think EA Sports is to blame. At the time, business was down for the Ultimate Fighting Championship as a whole. In 2017, the promotion pulled in an annual revenue of $750 million, the highest in company history. Across 2018, the year UFC 3 launched, revenue dropped to $690 million. Now, obviously, $690 million isn't chump change. I can make sure I and all of my friends live out our entire lives comfortably with a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that amount of money, you know? But the numbers are the numbers. And we couldn't have known at the time, but the UFC was on its last legs. The company would shut down just 1 year later. citing a loss of... No, obviously I'm kidding. In October of 2018, just 8 months after UFC 3's launch, the company would pull their biggest pay-per-view buy rate of all time, with UFC 229, Khabib vs. McGregor. 2 years later, in October of 2020, EA Sports UFC 4 would go on to become the best-selling UFC video game of all time. And I'm not going to talk about it. You might ask why, and really the answer is simple. I didn't buy it. Let me reword that. I refused to buy it. Again, sometimes the criticism levied at EA is accurate. After UFC 3, I knew exactly what I wanted out of a sequel. First and foremost, I wanted a better career mode with sensical matchmaking. Give me that Fight Night Round 4 option of showing me every available fighter across the rankings and let me decide who I want to fight, how I want to train, how long I want to train for. All of that. Fight Night Round 4 came out in 2009. Don't tell me you can't just do it again. That's really it. That's all I needed. Better career mode. And what did we get? We got boxers Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, which is fine. Did the highly requested Pride mode come back? No. We got Kumite, a fantasy underground Bloodsport style gameplay mode that nobody asked for. We got a microtransaction nightmare of an online landscape where you could pay real money to dress like a clown or a werewolf or a fucking something else stupid. I didn't like the way it looked, and when there was a closed beta, I got in. I was at least willing to check it out in this environment, and I hated it. They'd fucked with the striking controls, and they fucked with the grappling controls, and honestly, it felt like shit to play. I wanted one thing, and they didn't give it to me. They loaded the latest sequel up with new, exciting opportunities for me to hand over as much money as possible, and so I opted out completely. Outside of that closed beta, I have never played a single fight in UFC 4. Sony gave away the game for free on PlayStation Plus, and out of sheer principle, I refused to play it even then. It was such a disappointment, Dan. You look forward to something for years, your expectations are low, practically the bare minimum, and what's delivered can't even hit that mark. I come to you now to say it's okay to take a step back from things you love. It's okay to take a break, especially if the topic at hand is a product that you have to pay for. If something is not living up to your expectations, give it a break. More often than not, you will find that a break will pay dividends in the end. I skipped UFC 4 entirely, and wouldn't you know it, the UFC 5 development cycle actually lasted longer, with 3 entire years passing between the release of 4 and 5. Now you might be wondering, did I come back? Did I buy UFC 5? Yeah, I did, and it's fucking awesome. Online career mode is sick. Creating my own fighter and facing other custom fighters online where each win earns me points to improve my guy? Hell yeah. A career mode with the option to turn down fight offers if I don't like them? Hell yeah. Fedor Emelianenko in the octagon for the first time? Hell yeah. A new damage system with doctor stoppages for the first time in franchise history? Hell yeah. Players of UFC 4 have complained that this entry is too similar, gameplay-wise, that they feel like there wasn't a big enough leap between sequels, and to that I say, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to not throw your money at something if it's not up to your standards. And trust me, that time away will pay dividends. I've been an MMA fan since 2004. I was blessed to fall so deeply in love with the sport when I did, able to witness the entire career of Anderson Silva. I've been here for the birth of women's MMA. I was there in the arena when all-time greats Fedor Emelianenko and Dan Henderson went to war in 2011. I was in the arena when Chael Sonnen beat Michael Bisping to earn his rematch against Anderson Silva I was there in the arena for Frank Mir's fight with Fedor in 2018. I've hosted hundreds of UFC hangouts with my friends where copious amounts of pizza and other assorted junk food were consumed. Some of my favorite memories with my dad are tied to watching UFC pay-per-views together, man. Look, I still have the tapes from when my dad worked overnights and wasn't here or wasn't awake for the event. I would record it so that he could see it when he got home. Great memories, Dan Dans. The history of UFC video games. While it wasn't always a top-tier experience, I would say there's definitely more highs than lows. Sometimes we're getting choked out. Other times we're scoring that big KO. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series as much as I have. Oh, there it is, Dan Dans. The history of UFC video games, Part 5, Changing the Game. And I already announced next year it's the history of Friday the 13th. Don't miss it. And that's quite a leap, isn't it? From UFC video games over to Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th. I mean, Jason did uppercut that boxer's head off one time. That's almost relatable. Dan Dans, I love you. I appreciate you watching. If you appreciate this video, if you appreciate this channel, this series, maybe you want to support me over on patreon.com/616entertainment. I could really use you in my corner, and each new sign up brings us one step closer to a brand new retrospective. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I'll see you next time.